Here we go.
I needed that.
There you go.
I'm down for that. I think that's cool. Well, Chris's podcast, I Needed That, co-hosted by Matthew Blades, is available on all streaming platforms, everybody.
Again, we're talking with Rachel from season 5 of my show.
We tend to do that a lot with a ton of things, is like try to pass on ownership.
You know, I'm a confident, badass woman. That's what I say to myself.
I just stopped feeling like you anymore. I remember looking at myself in the mirror and being like, who is this chick? I am MIA, and I need to get myself back.
Here we go, Chris.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of the I Needed That podcast. And today's podcast, my friend, is for anybody that's experienced chronic pain, suffered injuries, has movement issues related to those injuries, maybe feels an imbalance in their body. My head's going up too.
This guy, both these thumbs are pointing right at me. This guy right here.
It's so funny. And on our Facebook Live, right before we got going, we had this big discussion with our entire community. And we were like, at what age did it start to fall apart for you?
And for everybody, it was between 30 and 35.
Yeah, it's fascinating how that happened. And so specifically today, we're going to jump into a story of back pain. And, me specifically, well, you too, we both dealt with back issues.
Yes.
You've got bulging and what other kind of ailments here?
Oh man, herniated L5S1, bulging L4, L5.
Okay.
And you've had a similar issue that was bulging, and then give me the details.
So I had a
on yours.
herniated disc that broke off into 2 spaces and started to travel up my spinal canal. And it wasn't until one of those pieces pinched a nerve and I lost my right leg. Like I couldn't walk for like what felt like forever. And it was actually just a few hours where I couldn't feel my leg. I was like, oh, this is great. And I ended up in emergency back surgery where they had to remove the piece. And now, I mean, it's been 2 years. I'm still building up the strength from all the damage that took place in that moment, man.
I remember texting you back and forth during when all of that was going down. Yeah. You probably don't remember a whole lot.
I was on drugs.
I know.
What do you want from me, man? I was absolutely high as a kite. I had opioids. I was trying everything. I literally threw the kitchen sink at this thing, man. I tried cannabis. I tried CBD. I tried opioids. I tried meditation. I tried suppositories that had a pain relieving element. Like, I mean, when you get to the point where you're sticking things up your butt to help the back pain, but you got a problem.
But when you're there, you'll do anything to stop it. I'm telling pain is debilitating. And coming from a couple old dudes that know, even though we don't feel mentally, we don't feel old, but physically, holy smokes. And boy, I tell you what, back pain, I know we're kind of zeroing in on that, but we're going to be talking about all kinds of pain because, your body goes through so much experience in life. We got shoulder pain, hip pain, back pain, everything. But I know back pain is funny. When we did our Facebook Live just before this, we just started talking about it. I'd say probably 60 to 70% of the people chimed in. Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. This is bulging. That's herniated. And this is, pinching nerve here. And, it's like, boy, you realize that this is not something that's just targeted a few isolated people. No, this is a very widespread issue, back pain. So let's talk about it today. I'm really excited to have our guest on.
Yeah, let's bring him in right now. He goes by Vinny, and he joins us from where do you join us from, Vinny? Where are you in the world?
Yeah, Ventura County, so just north of LA.
Okay, nice. Super, man. Well, welcome to the I Needed That podcast. How are you this morning?
I'm good. I feel like we all just became best friends about back pain.
Right? Seriously.
We all got a story, don't we?
We are back pain brothers, all of us.
Oh, man. So what's your story, Vinny? Like, you're in the pain business now because of your own experience. So, like, what happened? What were you doing? Did you, like me, or did you bend down to do some vacuuming or to pick up one of your kids' toys and then you just fall to your knees and it was game over? Or what was your situation?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little context here, backstory. I was a Division I collegiate athlete training for the 2008 Olympics. Like every athlete does, you've got your eyes always set on the big leagues, right? And ever since I was a kid, I wanted to go to the Olympics, and that's what filled my heart and my vision for so many years. And I was pretty damn good at swimming. I had 30+ Colorado State records. 8-time All-American for college. I mean, I was good in the water.
Wait, hold on. Colorado State, Fort Collins.
Not Colorado State. I was born and raised in Denver, and then my
okay.
year of collegiate swimming was at the amazing University of Wyoming.
Ah.
Not as cool as
I actually think that sounds like a better place to go.
amazing.
Yeah?
Yes. Hold on, Vinny. How old are you?
35.
Okay, so a good buddy of mine, who's actually my roommate, he was a decathlete at the University of Wyoming, but he's 47 now. So Justin Smith, I don't know if you know the name, but
no,
anyway.
But he survived Wyoming. Good
He
to
survived.
hear.
Yes, he
That
did
not
survive
How many of us
Wyoming.
make it out of there?
Yeah, I know. Glad to see that you made it out.
Oh my
But,
God.
yeah.
All right. So back to you.
sorry to
You're a
interrupt.
really good
Yeah.
swimmer. You're doing the thing.
Yeah, so I was an elite athlete. You know, I was a young, strong, capable man, and I was getting really burned out of going up and down a pool, and so I wanted to venture into other hobbies or sports, and surfing caught my eye. And I eventually moved out to California, and I kind of had this pipe dream of becoming a pro surfer because I thought it would be that easy. If I could swim in a pool, I'd probably be a hell of a surfer.
Right.
And it turns out that was not the case, and I was humbled very quickly. A wave took me out, and I crashed in the rocks. A rock broke my fall, and my back hit that rock. And it went from I went from an elite athlete to being disabled in a matter of seconds.
Wow.
The impact fractured my T12 vertebrae. I herniated multiple discs. The force of the impact on the rock created such significant nerve damage that my spine shifted to the side and rotated 21 degrees. So I came out of that ocean an entirely different man. And it was a life-changing injury. And, you know, I never once thought about movement. I never really cared. It was all about performance and pushing your body and going fast. I never thought about the quality of life and the quality of movement until I just couldn't move. And
if you don't mind my asking,
I was going to say, we got some questions.
Yeah,
here,
yeah, please.
How did you get out of the water? And
That's
not
exactly what I
drown?
wanted to know.
Yeah, were you did a lifeguard come get you, or what happened?
No, so there was no lifeguard. I attribute my ability to get back to the shore to all of the hours that I spent uncomfortable in a pool. I just went into survival mode, and I moved over onto my back. I resonated a lot when you talked about that your leg, you just didn't have feeling in it. It was the same thing. When I surfaced above water, first thing I did was look down at my left leg. I mean, I knew something was wrong because I felt it. And I looked down at my left leg to make sure it was there because I didn't feel it flopping around in the water.
Wow.
It was in shock. And I just slowly moved back to the shore, going from laying on my back and doing little kind of sculling motions with my hand to then trying to roll over and doing little doggy paddles. Didn't park too far away from the shore. And it was an army crawl. I mean, I was crawling on my stomach or my hands and my knees to just get back to my car. And I didn't go to the hospital. I was in shock. The first thing I did was I need to be alone and I need to be at home. So I didn't call the ambulance. I didn't call anybody. I just drove white knuckled in silence. It was the worst car drive of my life trying to get home.
With how many discs did you herniate?
I think if I'm recalling, it was 3 disc herniations along with a torn ligament.
Oh my God. Look, I've herniated 1 disc. And let me tell you, I couldn't even crawl at that point when it all went down. So to have 3 and just to crawl back to your car and white knuckle at home.
It had to be pure adrenaline. It had to be, and shock, right? Like
it was that's all it was. I mean, I wasn't making conscious, rational decisions. It was survival mode. I mean, that's exactly what it needs to in those times. And the only thing I was thinking about is I need to get to safety, and home and the floor was safety to me. So it was it felt like a 10-mile long trek back to that car, but
sure.
What's crazy about our podcast, Vinny, is, you know, almost everybody we've interviewed, they're doing something in life now because they needed it first. And it certainly sounds like your story too. It's like that moment opened up this whole new thing for you. And eventually now you've gone on to create the Pain Academy, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later on in here. But so what happens in the weeks following this incident? Like the next day, okay, where you wake up and you're like, okay, maybe I should go to the doctor.
Right.
Yeah, it was very clear to me that this was not something that I could sleep off because there was no sleep. You know, when you have, and as you know, when you've got back pain, it's not something that you can just limp and force your way through. it's every movement, it's every toss and turn. And that's what that night was. It was a very long night. I felt like I just had to get through the night, and in the morning I could kind of reassess and figure out what the game plan was. I had a friend take me down to the hospital. We did the very typical, what are the x-rays? What are the MRIs? Let's take a look as to what's actually happening there. And man, I remember being in that waiting room. First of all, they couldn't give me enough drugs. It was excruciating. And that doctor slapping the first initial x-ray of my spine up on that little whiteboard. And it was just this disconnection. Like, that's mine. That's what's happening right now. It was gross and it was ugly. And I was, not only was I in pain, but I was terrified. Okay, this is what we need. We probably need to do a fusion. We need to go in here. These are the surgery options, and this is immediate. We should act now on this. I was a kid. I was terrified. You know, I was 20 years old, which for men, that's not that old. It takes us a while to make very mature decisions. And and I just remember being terrified. And I said no. I said no to the surgery. I just wanted the pain prescription. I thought I could just do it on my own. That was part of my arrogance and what I needed to be humbled in as a young man. My story from there is probably like so many other people's story with back pain. What do you do? Let's throw the kitchen sink at it. What are the available drugs? What are the unavailable drugs? What are the treatment protocols? What's mainstream? Go to PTs, chiropractors, acupuncturists. Let me try massage and just all of it. I just, in a state of panic, tried all of it. And
if you don't mind my asking, can we go through that list of all the different things? Because
I did every one of them too.
Exactly. Like, so, I mean, started off with opioids. Same here. Opioids. That was the first go-to of like, okay,
muscle relaxers and opioids, just calm it down.
We can manage this. And then for me, it turned into a painkiller addiction where I got hooked on them for a couple of years. But then for you, opioids, then you tried what? Cannabis.
Well, I don't know if I jumped to cannabis right away. I think for me, it was what he was just saying. I did massage. I did acupuncture. I did a lot of maybe more spiritual elements, more spiritual kind of treatments in that regard.
I did acupuncture.
You did?
Yep. I did some deep tissue
Cupping.
massage. Yep. I did assisted stretching,
heat, ice.
Of course. Yes, absolutely. All the above. And then actually it was on the tail end of my opioid addiction. And it was probably about shortly after that, one of my doctors actually suggested that I try cannabis. And that's, I went and got a green card for it because it was like, okay,
chiropractors.
I'll do whatever to manage this thing and sleep at night. Chiropractors. Yes. Myopractors.
Yeah.
We did. I mean, what
I went to this guy.
Name it, we did it all.
Dude, here's how crazy it went for me. Vinny, I'd love to hear if you got a story like this. I got to a point where it was so awful that I went to go see this guy in an office. It wasn't even a medical office. Okay. This guy just had, he's laughing.
He pulled up in a truck, just dropped.
Literally, this guy, it was in like a law office, and this guy just happened to have a side hustle and a side passion for cracking people's backs. And he had this table where he would strap your hips in and he would strap your torso in, and then he would drop the table and he would literally just kind of go, it would just open you up. And I went there. And I line on this freaking thing, and he's rubbing my back. He's doing the thing, and he's like, "Okay, you know, on 3, 2, 1, I'm gonna drop this table, and you're just gonna come apart." And he did it, and I have to tell you that it felt incredible for a little while, but I actually think I might have done some serious damage with that procedure because of what happened next. But yeah, I mean, like, if you're like me, you ended up in a dark alley working with a dude who said he could treat you. You're right. We'll try anything at some point.
Oh man,
anything.
I remember. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Vinny. I remember one time I was so desperate. I ended up going to this one clinic, and it's not stim. It's like the typical stim kind of for rehabilitation, but they send this strong electrical currents into the body, and it forces an eccentric contraction, and they take you through like a good morning kind of movement, but like they start running all these volts of electricity like into your body, and I'm sitting there biting on a towel, and I'm going, I'm going through these motions, and what happened is that part actually, it gave me some relief. But what happened is as they turned it off, my back jerked and then like threw me out again. And so I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. So Vinny, tell us what you ended up doing.
Guys, all of it.
Yeah.
I bet everybody listening to us right now is going, oh yeah, me too. Yeah.
You know, when you go through the conventional stuff and it doesn't work, first of all, emotionally, and this is what took me years to understand. Every time I went to go see somebody with the doctorates on the wall, and this is not a stance against Western medicine. It's brilliant in what it does. It has a time and a place for everybody. But every time you go to these experts and they say, oh yeah, this is this, you've got X, Y, Z, I'm going to put you on the protocol. And that protocol doesn't work. It moves you one step closer towards the insane options. It moves you one step closer towards, oh, I'm so unique that even the mainstream stuff doesn't work for me. So let me go take a chance on this guru or this influencer or whoever it is, anybody that's offering relief. When the main stuff fails, you feel like those are the only things. It must be some weird guru thing that you got to go find in the back of an alley somewhere to find some kind of relief. And that's what led me towards the people online. Unfortunately, like you guys too, you kind of have to do that stuff to see doesn't really work the way we want it to.
Right.
Probably the craziest situation, and I think I either have repressed most of them, I was in so much pain, my short-term memory conversion just wasn't working, or it's because I was high as a kite on painkillers. Right. I absolutely developed an addiction problem because of it. How do you not?
Right.
When that's being sold as the treatment option and you've got a recurring subscription of refills.
Oh, and by the way, they're $5. They're $5. Like it costs nothing to do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nothing.
And my pill bottles, they weren't like the small 30 count ones. It was like
it
was like the 180s. Yeah. And I was just like,
can't even put it in your pocket.
No. Oh no. No. But dude, like,
so,
let me tell you, whenever that sucker got refilled, I came flying out of CVS. I'm just like, whoa, let's go, you know. But
that's how I knew.
That's a big problem. Yeah, that's.
Take a sip of that water, Vinny, and let me ask you a question here. So, okay, you try a few things. How many weeks post accident are you where you start to understand that this is going to take a little bit more than you've been trying? Like, I'm guessing if you're like most people, you spend 3 to 5 to 6 months trying some other things, but then do you eventually get to a point where you're like, everything I'm throwing at this isn't working and I need to go to DEFCON 4?
I was in that for about 4 years.
4 years.
Wow.
4 years of frantically trying in a panic state for 4 years, trying anything and everything. Any product I saw online, bought it. Any commercial info ad, I bought it. Anybody that, oh, I have a guy, you got to go see him, I went to go see them. I was in the frantic search for answers for 4 years until it was just this epiphany of nobody's going to do this for me.
There it is.
There isn't a person out there who gives a shit about this as much as I do.
Right.
Nobody's going to come rescue me. And it was this moment when I was about 23-ish, I'd say. So just shy of 4 years, where I went back to school and I figured I need to go learn this stuff. I need to understand the body. What the hell is anatomy about? What is exercise physiology? How do our nerves and our muscles and our tendons work? I need to go back to the basics because the help that I'm getting, it wasn't helping. Even after the herniations healed, even after the fractured healed, 4 years later, I'm more disabled than ever. It was like there was no healing trajectory. My movement patterns and the problem was so significant. All I was doing was managing how much drugs I was taking. That was the only thing that was changing, and it was just trending worse. So I spent 4 years in that cycle of trying everything to really understand that I don't think the answers were out there with somebody doing something to my body. And I went back to school, became a certified personal trainer, became a corrective exercise specialist. I acquired various certs, some through Stanford School of Medicine on exercise physiology. I tried to bolster my education to figure out what the hell am I missing? I realized that there was no swiping of a credit card that was going to do it. And I think that was my fault. You know, it was, okay, I'm paying somebody thousands of dollars, so you got this, right? You're gonna fix the thing, and like I can just show up to these appointments and that's it. I was missing the what the hell do you do after the appointment, the in-between stuff, the time that you're not paying for somebody. Those were I think that was the biggest gap that I could at least control and find some kind of influence on my life. And that's why I poured all this time and money into education to fill it out. Yeah.
I have a question for you, man.
Please.
During this 4 years, I know for me, I know you because we've shared our stories on prior podcasts, but what were your relationships like with your friends, your family, your jobs? What did that 4 years look like for those people?
First of all, I was in survival. So
100%.
Everything I was done was through the lens of survival. I alienated everybody in my life. I thought with each failed treatment, I was misheard, misunderstood. Nobody understood what I was going through. That kind of pain and trauma has this really, really skillful way of putting up walls around you and making you shut the world out. Not only could I physically not be intimate with any woman that I was dating, I didn't want to be. My God, how painful that would have been. So I closed myself off physically. I absolutely closed myself off emotionally, not just because of the pain, but because I was high to manage the pain. And when addiction really started to come into this, I started to curb my day, my free time, my work, my alone time, whatever it is. I would do anything to figure out what are the pockets that I could just take a pill and be left alone. Yes. And that was my North Star. That was my guiding principle. So deep, meaningful connections, no way. They weren't there. And people tried, but I pushed them away. I was trying to numb myself and avoid myself. I was trying to suppress everything that I was feeling. So the capacity to be in a loving, open state of human connection, I didn't have any listening. I couldn't hear people's stories. It was just this screaming alarm bell that was just raging inside my body every single day. And maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe it was only 20 hours a day, but that's what it felt like.
No, I remember going through it, and I was married. I am married and have been for almost 20 years, and going through it with my wife. And I remember having these conversations with her when I started to get better, when I started to kind of get my head around everything that was happening, where I would say, you know, she'd be like, you're just so cold. Like, you don't open up. You don't look at me. You don't even say hello anymore. And I was like, can you do me a favor? And I know this is going to be an impossible ask, but can you just remember that every time I'm not myself, it's not me, it's the pain. Like, what I'm feeling in my body right now, in my mind, is so incredibly distracting. I don't even know that I have the capacity for anything else. And like you said, Vinny, like, you literally jump into survival mode. And I bring this up because I want people who know folks who are dealing with back pain. Man, in a lot of ways, we're trying the best that we can. Like, we're really just trying to get through the day. We're really just trying to get more than 3 hours of sleep at night. We're really just trying to, you know, function. Like, you know this, right? People want to go out to eat. It's like, I can't sit in a hard wooden chair for 2 hours while you guys hang out and eat. Yeah. I got to stand. I got to move. I got to do this. I got to do that. And it's just so hard. But remember that it's not the person necessarily. It's the pain that they're dealing with. And that should maybe help you find some compassion for their situation. And absolutely. I'm not saying you tolerate all the bullshit, but what I am telling you is that most of their bullshit isn't them. It's what they're thinking and feeling. And it's really, really difficult. It hurts.
Well,
it hurts.
To add to that, the flip side of the coin, because, by the way, I remember being there really well. When I was in pain, I did exactly what Vinny did. I pushed everybody away, and the pain was so bad. But then you go, okay, well, I'm going to go manage the pain. Yeah. And then you go take opioids. Now you're not yourself anyway. Right. And you're riding this opioid roller coaster where it's like, okay, now the pain's gone. And then then it wears off, and then you're in a worse place than you were before because your dopamine has dropped, your serotonin's dropped. And so now they're actually talking to the drugs. The drugs are taking over the mind. And so it's like you're either in pain or you're on drugs. Either way, you're not you, you know? And so it's
add color to that, Vinny.
Well, this is the next part of my journey, because once I learned academically, right? So I learned about pain not from textbooks. I learned it because I was living it every darn day. Once I learned the academics behind what are the things we need to do to restore physiological function and come back from life-changing injury, I still wasn't getting better, because the other half of the equation, your emotions, this is the stuff that a PT wasn't sitting down and talking to me about. Nobody that I saw in the 4 years of very expensive acute treatment ever once brought up what my relationship with pain was like. Not once. What is my capacity to parent myself? And in those moments of pain, how do I relate to it? What are the words? What is the dialogue? How am I showing myself the same kind of compassion I would show my kid when he's having a problem? No, I'd be hard as hell on myself. I would meet pain with resistance, and I would wage a war on my nervous system every single day. And when you're in chronic pain and you're in this fight flight, that's all you know. So when a loved one comes in, how do you just go into your parasympathetic nervous system and meet them lovingly? You don't. You're an extension of your reaction to pain. The exercises that did not work for me are the same exercises that did work for me once I understood the other half of the equation, my relationship with pain. Wow. Once I stopped looking at it as the problem and the thing that I had to numb and quiet and suppress, once I stopped looking at it as a sensation and I started to look at pain as an emotion, that's when everything started to change in meaningful ways. You got to understand that, like, the pain that you feel magnifies what's in here. And if you don't have the tools or the skill set to manage your mindset, it's an explosion waiting to happen every single time you feel it. Even to the point where if you're not in pain and you anticipate, oh, if I'm going to bend forward, my God, the worst thing in the world was hearing my keys drop or something drop on the floor, because I knew I would then have to bend forward. And it was like, oh God, that's an emotion. And when your emotions are constantly swirling and when they're so intrinsically entangled in pain, how do you find your true self in that? It's really hard. And it's only when you can understand that pain only knows resistance. It only knows you trying to avoid it and suppress it and trying to numb yourself and run away from it, trying to conquer it. Pain doesn't know what to do when met with your breath and when met with kindness and love and empathy and compassion. And if you would have told me that when I broke my back, I probably would have flipped you off and said, whatever, hippie, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, no, sure, pal. Sure.
You have our undivided, when you said breath and kindness and compassion, you have our undivided attention right now. It's
what we talk about daily. I mean, and it's so important. And there's not one universal prescription for anybody's back pain, because everybody comes to it differently. But I think you are really, I know from my own experience that you're onto something there when you talk about the relationship to pain and when you talk about the emotional factor that contributes to the pain. And so while it could be dangerous to recommend one book for anybody for all things, I'm telling you right now, there's a book that changed my life by Dr. Sarno called Healing Back Pain. And he pointed at me, right? So if you're not watching this on our YouTube right now, you can see Vinny just pointed at me, right? Because for so many of us, it is the emotional component that is causing it to maybe stick around, be way more intense. And what have you come to learn about that, Vinny? Because, I got the nod. So what have you come to learn about that?
Yeah. So everybody, what lands them in back pain is completely different. We are all completely unique, every single one of us. And we are exactly the same. The moment you understand that, and the moment you stop looking for that needle in the haystack, you come to a few basic truths and principles. I have to improve the way my body's moving, right? Notice how I didn't say I've got to fix my back pain. There's nothing broken. I've got to improve my capacity to move, and I need to do that daily. And I have to develop the emotional tools to navigate everything that's showing up. And if we can treat back pain the same way we treat anxiety or mental health problems, which is what's going on and what are the tools? How can I regulate my internal world with thoughts and words? Then we start developing a process. We need to move and we need to think. And when we can change those two things with exercises, change those. Simple movement exercises can do a world of good. Simple mindset exercises can do a world of good. I've never helped somebody change their life in a radical way by focusing on just one of those. Both problems need to be worked on simultaneously. It has to be at the same time, because anytime you do a movement, if you're in chronic pain, oh God, is this going to hurt? When does the pain,
Chris is clenching his butt cheeks right now. We were just talking about this before we got going. That stress keeps you tight.
My core is activated and my hips are gently rolled underneath me to relieve that tension in my lower back.
Yeah. Emotion and motion. It's the same word. There's just one letter that's different. We have to look at both simultaneously. And when you can understand this anticipatory factor of movement, where you're kind of like, what are the things Chris is doing that is almost perpetuating the problem? What are the reactions? How can I understand that as an emotion? And what is the tools I need to develop to help not combat that, but to soften that? Most problems with the body are not problems to go solve. They're problems to dissolve over time by learning how to change your inner world and by doing gentle, simple movement. So every exercise, every position that I teach people, it's also an opportunity. There's going to be a lot that comes up. You might start crying. You might start laughing. You might get really pissed.
We were just talking about this before the show. We were talking about the emotional
TRE. Have you ever heard of it? Tension release exercise. Dr. Briselli, you should totally look into it. It's incredible because it's based on the fact that most of us store trauma in our pelvis region. And so when we're tight due to traumatic experiences coming up or whatever we've had, that stuff stays right there. And until we unlock it, it grips us and keeps us in that tension part that we were talking about.
Yeah. But as you start to unlock it, like you just mentioned, Vinny, sometimes you can cry. Sometimes you might even feel sick to your stomach. I mean, all these different things start to come up, right?
Yeah, it's when I started, and a little bit further context, I grew up in a household like most of us where parents were born probably 30s, 40s, or 50s. Emotional expression wasn't a thing that was fostered in a stereotypical Italian household. I'm sure not as well as many others. So I've had years of learning how to suppress emotions and run away from things. And now this back pain is like forcing me to actually feel things again. I'll tell you one of the biggest changing moments. And this was taught to me by somebody else. I'm sure you've probably come across it. It's an ancient Hawaiian forgiveness practice called Ho'oponopono.
Of course.
You've heard it.
Yes.
No, I never heard this before.
All right, everybody, tune up. Everybody, turn the volume up right now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So powerful.
There are 4 phrases that you can repeat. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And I love you. I don't know if there's a right order of it, but those are the 4 phrases.
That's how I was taught it.
I remember when I first learned those 4 phrases, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try my normal movement stuff, my mobility that pissed me off, that made me feel all of the reasons why I wasn't capable of living life. The same movement routine that reminded me of all the ways that I couldn't play with my son or connect with my wife. I'm going to go, I guess, say these 4 phrases when I do this. And I'm doing it. Thank you. The hell am I thinking? My body's only got in my way. Well, thank you also for helping me live. And thank you for showing up for me all the years that you had. Thank you for all the ways that you've had to compensate to still keep me alive through a traumatic back injury. I've never once thought about thanking my body. It was the problem. It was the thing I was against for years. So as I'm saying thank you, it was the first moment of internal gratitude that I had towards myself, because I didn't know if I even had anything to be thankful for, but I'm alive and I do. I'm sorry. Well, I started saying I'm sorry. And what came up was all of the ways that I would abuse my body. I mean, we've all done it. When you push and you force and you power your way and you wind up in a flare-up. I think because a lot of us feel intense stuff internally, we think we have to match that with an intense approach. And it doesn't have to be that way. I'm sorry for always meeting my body in pain with tension and fighting my way through. Please forgive me. I never once thought to ask my body for forgiveness for all of the drugs that I put in it, for all of the therapy that I quit, for all of the things that probably could have worked, but I just didn't have the patience. Again, mindset. I didn't have the patience to get through it. And then I said, I love you. And that was the hard part because I didn't love myself. No wonder why I treated myself like a garbage can. No wonder why I was taking so much drugs, partly because addiction, but a lot of it was self-harm because I was whatever, screw it. I'm wrecked. Let me just get through life, I guess, whatever way I can. I didn't eat great. I didn't take care of myself. Working out wasn't a thing. There was no self-care. It was just fighting myself. That's all I knew. And these 4 phrases, I just kept saying over and over again. And the exercises that I hated started to turn into tools that helped me then navigate emotions in a way that I had never tried. And I remember crying. And I'd done this stuff 100 times before, man. Academically, I understood it. Logically, I understood it. Emotionally, this was new territory for me. And so saying these 4 phrases, it was the step 1 for me of beginning to acknowledge, oh, there's emotions here and there's a lot here. Now what?
Incredible. We have maybe 10 minutes left with Vinny. We are probably going to have him back. I would love to have him back.
Oh,
I'd love that.
Yeah. Okay. The fix for everybody is going to look different. Here's what I don't think looks different, because you mentioned how similar we are. There are a few things that I'm sure you've come to learn, Vinny, that people do regularly to make things worse, right? And so, you know, you're either working towards a solution or you're not, right? Yep. So what are a few things that people who typically have back problems, as you've come to discover, that they continually do? And you just mentioned a couple of them, like we don't eat well, we don't move anymore because it hurts to move. And so those are a couple of ways that I call it self-sabotage, right? And that's kind of a great name for it. But what are other ways that people self-sabotage themselves during their episode with back pain?
A few that come to mind immediately. Number 1, doing many things at once. You go to a chiropractor, you go to a PT, you go to massage. Those are 3 incredibly different variables that are all affecting your physiology. When you're doing all these things in a panic state and you feel better, you don't know which one worked. And if you feel worse, you don't know which one flared you up. When you introduce so many variables, when you're not diligent, you have to be your own scientist. What is the one thing I'm going to change right now to then observe what changes happen from that one thing? Everybody's so frantically, like I was, just trying to feel better. You're doing too much. And if something works, how the hell are you going to know if that was a thing or not? So there's no wisdom in your approach if you're scattered. So you have to get organized. You have to get yourself aligned. The next thing, your expectations are 100% one of the next biggest reasons why things are not working well for you. If you're giving yourself a timeline on how long a therapy process should work, you're immediately sabotaging the therapy from even working. And this is the tough love. Who are you to put a timeline on something that your body is dictating? That's the human. That's the thinking part. You're trying to outthink a physiological problem. That's not how we work. Not giving yourself enough space and time for your body to change is the second biggest thing that people do to sabotage themselves on a daily basis. The third thing is every damn day is different. Some days they're walking a lot. Some days they're not moving a lot. Our bodies thrive on routine and consistency. If you don't have a movement practice that you can anchor yourself in, even if it's the soft, gentle stuff that I teach, It allows you to come to the same place every day internally, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you can gauge, is there progress? What's changing on a daily basis? When you're so up and down and your schedule's changing and you don't have a solid mindset or movement practice, how could you feel better? And if you do, it's maybe random. Or if you do feel better, maybe you're just learning different ways to compensate to not feel as much pain. You have to develop a foundation that you can rely on long-term. And most people who are in the chronic pain cycle, there is no foundation. It's sporadic doses of very intense things that are not sustainable, they're not manageable, and they just don't do long-term. So they're like a kite, as I was, flying around in a hurricane, allowing whatever thing they're going to try that day to just completely throw them off. A random stretch online, a random foam rolling session. We have to develop simple, actionable consistency that can be achievable every day. And oh my gosh, when you do that, the amount of change that you can feel internally, it fundamentally changes your whole experience with chronic pain.
Yeah.
Anything from you? Then I got one final question.
One more question. Okay, so it's great that you identified some of these mistakes that people make and what they can do about it. You know, as far as and it's funny, we all use the same term. 30 minutes ago, we all said throw the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And then Vinny's like, that's actually one of the worst things you can do, because you have to identify what's working and what isn't. And then of course moving into,
but you do have to try things. You do. You have to move towards a solution. So that's fair.
Absolutely. And then start splitting them out so you can figure out which one's working, which ones aren't. And then of course, finding that consistency in the routine. How about mentally, as far as negative self-talk? What are some things that they're big red flags? If people are starting to repeat something to themselves, what should they be aware of? What are they saying that they shouldn't be saying to themselves?
So that's definitely going to be a part 2 podcast, because that could be the whole episode. But the first initial answer is, right now, I just want everybody to observe what you are saying. Instead of creating a say this, don't say that, you shouldn't do this. Right now, we first get clear on how are you reacting internally to pain. Every time that wince, that electrifying bolt shows up in your life, what is the conversation? What is your default conversation that you're having? We can't change a problem that we don't understand. So step 1 is understanding how you as a human being are relating to this problem that's showing up. What are the words that were showing up? Once we're aware of that pattern, just doing this noting technique of, oh, there I am being really hard on myself, or there I am being really negative. There I am being apathetic with this problem. Okay. Can I be more kind? The next step is with a loved one. If you've ever been in a relationship, if you're a parent, if your kid has a problem, if your partner has a problem, how would you show up to help them? Well, why is you showing up for yourself any different than that? Start there.
So true.
Start there. We wouldn't start cursing each other. I mean, maybe we would. It all depends on your upbringing, but like, how you would treat others, why don't you start treating yourself that way internally and adopting that language? And then we can go into different skills and tools and steps from there. But I think step 1 is identify what is the thought pattern? How are you relating to this sensation that could have been, like mine, life-changing? And then can we maybe be a little softer?
I love this so much. Grab a journal, guys. Open up your phone, take notes, record voice memos, because he brings up such a great point. Like, you have two kids. I have 2 kids. He has children. Like, if I said to my kids when they were in pain the things that I said to myself when I was in the heat of my back pain, I would go to jail. I would be disgusting. Like, it was so violent. I was so vile to myself. I had so much self-hatred. I had so much self-love. I mean, like, all the self-negative stuff was at the height of it, right? And then what comes with chronic pain, for me at least, was like suicidal ideations. You start thinking about like, well, shit, man, maybe this just needs to end. And the fastest way for this to end is that, right? And when you get to that point, just become aware of the fact that, oh, okay, hold on a second. I'm at that point that mental health professionals talk about where I need to get a little bit kinder with myself. I need to get a lot more gentle with myself. the final question that I want to ask you, and then we'll let you go and enjoy your day, but it's like, where are you now? What is your relationship with your back? What is your relationship with your pain? What does your movement look like? Do you swim still? I mean, people have all these questions, right?
Yes.
I burned out of swimming. I think I'm done with water sports.
Okay.
Last year, I just completed my first ultramarathon, 50-mile race through the Oregon Cascade Mountain Range, 50 miles, 1,500 feet up, 1,500 feet down.
Wow.
I am pain-free. Not to say that pain doesn't exist, because when you train for ultra marathons, you're choosing instead every day. But my relationship with pain is one that it's now just, it's a thing. There's no reaction. My back feels amazing. I'm able to live the quality of life that I can, that I want to. And I get to go travel the world. I just went to Patagonia for an ultra marathon. I just get to go, I get to use my body now as an instrument to go figure out, what am I capable of? What am I made of? And I owe it all to the things that I teach others. It's pretty cool.
Incredible.
It's so cool, man.
I'm going to Google something, because this whole conversation brings me back to, it's either a Chinese proverb or Bruce Lee or said it.
You look it up.
Something.
And I want to share this. This is Vinny's site, painacademy.net. And I didn't intend to throw everybody your stuff and send folks there, but your story today and the way that you've shared things, I can vouch for it, because it's 100% my journey. It's 100% this guy's journey. This is the real way to handle back pain, even if there's some medical issue behind it, like a sports injury or some other type of injury where you have a bulge or a herniated or, whatever that thing is for you. This is the way to attack it long term, so that you can eventually learn to live with it. Because as I said at the beginning of this podcast, or maybe it was in our live, the pain is a signal to do something about it. Nothing more than that. Don't attach any more value to the pain than it's a signal. And it's screaming at you like, hey, you might want to work on this because we have a problem. Did you find it?
I didn't, but I looked up the second part of it, and I believe it's like a Chinese proverb or something. It says, accept pain as your brother and he will walk with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, but in the first part of it, and I just don't want to do it any disservice, but it's like, it's about opposing pain and it will crush you. But if you accept him as your brother, he will walk with you. And it's like, And this whole conversation that just keeps coming back up, I was like, wow.
Vinny, closing thoughts from you, man.
Look, when you, and I understand this message is going to hit everybody differently depending on where you're at. What if you were to allow pain to be there?
Yeah.
Befriend it. Just create space for it. What if instead of trying to get rid of it and fix it, you actually just allowed room for it to be there? How then would you make decisions, and how then would you show up? And what would the different things? Being pain-free is not an end goal. It is a practice that needs to be done every single day. And when you can do that, this is what I teach people. And I would love to show as many people interested as possible on exactly step-by-step how to do that.
Wow. Well done,
I'm giving a standing ovation to this podcast today, man.
So
that is incredible. Thank you so much, Vinny, for your authenticity, your vulnerability, and the know-how to make a change in people's lives. We wish you nothing but the best. You need to be on the lookout for an email from Sam, our podcast manager, because we are going to have you back, and we're going to do a whole podcast on self-talk.
Yes, on the mental aspect of it, 100%. And in the meantime, I'm sure you're going to do the same. When I reach down to touch my toes and I anticipate that little pinch in my back, I'm going to see what comes up and start paying attention to the conversation I'm having with myself. And I hope everybody listening does the same.
Yeah.
When you start to anticipate it, start paying attention. Pull out that journal. Start writing it down, and you'll probably see a really similar pattern. And you might see a pattern of negative self-talk starting to come up over and over and over again. And it'll shine a huge spotlight on the areas where we need to start to change that. As Vinny says, try being softer with ourselves. I love it.
Man, Vinny, thank you so much for being on the I Needed That podcast, man.
Of course, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to round two.
Yeah, absolutely. Us too. Well, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget about our I Needed That podcast Instagram handle. We're on Facebook now. Of course, the YouTube channel where you can watch all of these things go down live. And if you want to visit Vinny, it's painacademy.net. We'll see everybody next week on our I Needed That podcast. Have a great day, my friend.
All right. Take care,
see you, bud.
Thank you, Vinny.